We are live. Go ahead.
And I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the madmen of masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
We're doing it for you.
We are doing it for you. We're not doing it for us. We talk to each other all day, every day.
Speaking of talking to each other, man,
What are we talking about?
you know what?
Hmm.
I was playing golf with a guy,
What happened with that guy?
and, his story ended, tragically.
You're not talking about me, are you?
No, this is another guy.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I was, but when tragically came out, I changed it. Anyhow, so we were playing golf, and this guy looks over to me and he says, "Hey, man, what is a high value man?" And I said, "Man, that is a great topic. That's a great question, man, and that is one worth unpacking."
I think we should do some unpacking on what is a high value man in today's world.
Unpack it.
We're unpacking. We're unpacking your luggage, your baggage, your carry on, as it were.
Yeah, the HVM, the high value male. Why is this important?
Well, I mean, that's what every man wants to be, what every woman wants to have is a high value man. Well, what is a high value man? I'm probably going to caveat right here. Just go ahead and trigger alert. I'm probably not going to agree with what the societal norm of high value is because in my awareness and what I see, most people think high value man really only means high income or high dollar amount or high net worth. And I think that is probably a very low bar to set or not the most telling characteristic to be looking for. Yeah, if you want to have amount of money, but I don't think that's the main thing you want to be looking for. I mean, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I'm just going to disagree with whatever you say. So,
Okay, go ahead and disagree.
I don't know. I mean, you got to say something, and I'll disagree with it.
I just said it.
Okay, I disagree with that.
So you disagree that you think that the pocketbook, the wallet is the most important thing when it comes to high value man?
I think that's part of it. I think you can't be broke necessarily and be a high value man. But what is broke? Broke is relative.
Right.
So I think therein lies the question of what is the value? Now I think there's a difference between value and worth. And we gotta understand that the difference between those two kind of sets the baseline for what it is. What's the bar that you're trying to meet? What's the bar that you're trying to get to? Worth is something. In my opinion, worth is something that somebody. When you go to you do the antiques. Did you just burp?
No. What me?
You look like you burped.
What
man.
me?
All right, just keep it over there, man. Anyhow, when you look at when the guy goes to the antique roadshow and he says, "Oh, this platter is an original Louis XIV signed by his famous platter maker Frederick, and so therefore, this thing is worth $3 million," and the person freaks out. $3 million? I got a $3 million platter that Aunt Dula gave to me a while ago. Yeah. So that might be quote unquote the worth based on all those factors and all that kind of stuff. But the value is what somebody will pay for that thing. So when you get a car and you look at the Kelley Blue Book, it's the Kelley Blue Book value. So it is what you should expect to get from that on the open market. And I think those are two totally different things. And those two totally things kind of set the benchmark or the framework for what it is that you're trying to attain.
Yeah, I think we should dig in a little bit even to what is worth versus value because value, like you said, is what people will pay, but worth is the intrinsic value. The worth of a person, the worth of an antique, the worth of a thing has to do with its background, with where it comes from, with how rare it is, all those different things. So I think each person has their own unique worth that may differ from what their sexual marketplace value is.
I'm gonna trigger somebody right now.
Trigger it.
I'm gonna trigger somebody. Boom, boom. I'm gonna trigger somebody right now. Here we go. I'm gonna use the antithesis to make. I went to public school, but I did graduate, man. I'm gonna use the antithesis to make the point here. And the parallel that I'm gonna draw because it just popped into my mind, and I was having this conversation the other day.
Okay.
I think women's like your friend circle is your greatest friend, but also your worst enemy in some ways. And let me elaborate on that. I think it's great for women to encourage other women and to build each other women up and all those kinds of things. But I don't think accountability is really high in the female sphere. So I think quite often women will, inflate the quote unquote worth factor in a woman's mind as opposed to holding her accountable. Girl, you don't need to be wearing them jeans tonight. You know what I'm saying? Or, girl, you need to tighten that up or whatever it is. So I think a lot of times in the female sphere, and this is, what guys might experience, that I think in the female sphere, there's a higher sense of value because it's conflated with worth. So your worth may be, oh girl, you are fantastic, you are lovely, you're beautiful, and all these other kind of things, But at the same time, it's like, okay, but what can you get for that? Like you can be pretty girl all day long, but if a guy ain't willing to pay for that, then your worth might be pretty girl, but your value might be, ugh. Right. I mean, and so so the two of those things can go hand in hand. Same thing I think on the guy side of things, where whereas guys we don't necessarily do the conflated worth kind of thing to each other. We pretty realistic. Like, dude, you a sucker, man. Like, you need to get your act together, man. You a chump.
Right.
But at the same time, I think in terms of a high value man, a lot of it comes down to okay, you may know your worth, and your worth is the intrinsic kind of sense of
Who you are,
who
right?
you are, but your value on the street might be something totally different. So us as guys, guess what? If you 5'1", 300 pounds, working at McDonald's, you could be the greatest guy in the world. Your worth might be fantastic. You might be the nicest, whatever, but on your value on the street in terms of the female sphere, not so much.
Well, I mean, depends on what ladies want. Maybe they want an Oompa Loompa that works
Come on,
McDonald's.
man. How many do you know want that?
Not many, but I'm just saying.
Exactly.
Well, and that's what's funny because you get a lot of that. Well, it depends.
Let's be
But
real.
especially for even to your point, a lot of what we see from the female side is that they do coalesce and combine value in their intrinsic worth. Whereas for most men, and we are just trained at this from basically jump, you are only really valued by what you can provide or what you can contribute to the world, to a woman, to society at large. So I think for us as guys, it's our high value really stems from what we can contribute. So I think that's why so much of it is correlated with how much income you make because we just assume that, well, the more income you make, the more you can provide. But is that your only purpose? I mean, is your purpose really just to make dollars and accumulate things? They may not. They may make you a high net worth. It may not make you a high value man if you're not contributing. And I think for me, really, it comes down to character, contribution, and compassion. So if you have your bills paid, if you have all your needs met, and you're using that income and that worth to contribute and to have a bigger purpose in yourself, whether it's growing food, planting trees, doing things like that for the next generation, you may not be a millionaire, but you are making a contribution that for the next generation and for the world at large.
I think it's important for us as guys, specifically in the value worth conversation. It's important for us to do better. I think we need to do better at understanding our worth. I think we need to do better at recognizing. Like in my case, I'm speaking for myself, not men universal, not even both of us, not every guy we know. I'm speaking for me myself. I see my worth as a created being, created, even in the image of God. Like I see myself as all of the good things that I have in me that I believe are God given, the gifts, the talents, the passions, the purpose, all those kinds of things. And we just talked about purpose. And so, I mean, but it's hard. It has been hard over most of my life for me to take that and say, okay, I have worth. And to invest in that and to when guys when we invest in something, then our worth and our value begins to kind of level out. We kind of begin to see both of those things. So I think it's important for us to up our sense of worth and still at the same time be realistic about our value in the culture and in society in terms of a lot of us feel like, man, I'm just a paycheck. I'm only as good as what I can give or sacrifice. I got to register for draft, but they don't. Guys that get divorced, man, I'm only good for a paycheck. You ain't want to be married with me, but now you want to walk in there and say everything I got coming in my bank account is yours at the end of the month. These are things that are part of the guy experience, the manosphere, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's why we get so much flack, or we get so much emphasis on the dollar amount in our bank accounts and how much we're bringing in. And I think a lot of times for, especially for guys, when our purpose changes or when we retire from the military or from a job and these different things, and so life changes that way, it can be very difficult because that was our purpose. That was the thing that drove us and kept us moving forward. But if we're not a millionaire, if we're not so focused on making money, and income our 100% purpose, it's our contribution. And I think a lot of us need to refocus on contribution nowadays. Less than, making $1 million and being a baller. What are we contributing? Because I think most of the guys that I know that are struggling is because we've put too much emphasis and focus on income and where we're at in the corporate world or what our job is or whatnot. And we're not really focused on the purpose and the contribution that purpose brings to the world. Because if we can focus on how we're contributing, and we talked about even on the purpose episode, your contribution doesn't have to be huge. It can be some small thing. When you adopted your son, that was one son, that was one kid, but I have seen the impact that's had on you and so many others. And so they may seem like to some, well, that's just one person. That's a huge, huge thing. That's a huge contribution, and that ripples out into the world. So when we look at what is a high value man, I think looking at what he's contributing, and even if he's not contributing a lot, what direction is he heading? Is he going in I'm contributing to make the world a better place, or am I just over here about me and what I can get?
That high value of the high value man is what we build off of our ideally high worth as a high worth man. And that starts on the inside. That starts in the mirror, quite honestly. I'm not talking narcissism. I'm not talking, just completely, ego-ish. I'm not talking like living like that. But us as men, there's a reason why we have a tap out rate. By tap out, I mean, ending our lives, around these middle years, because we look back and we say, oh man, I don't have the worth that I really, you don't destroy something or eliminate something that you see having worth. And so I think us as men, and that goes to even encouraging one another and seeing the worth in another man and establishing that worth. Like, man, I am actually worth something. Not even net worth in terms of dollars and cents, but I'm worth, like, it's important for me to be here, for the world. Like, that's key, and that's critical to greater society. And I think the more I'm talking, the more we're talking, a lot of it does kind of loop back to the purpose kind of episode. Because I think when you live purpose, then you begin to see your worth, because you begin to see the impact of that purpose, and the impact of that purpose becomes worth in our culture and our society, and it changes our focus when we look in the mirror. Like, I am here for a reason, and if I'm not here, then something goes away. And speaking of go away,
You want me to go away?
I don't want you to go away, man, but we need to go away from it.
Let's go away.
All right, we'll be right back. Madman Masculinity, baby. KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City and on the interwebs everywhere. We'll be right back.
Why are you trying to make me go away?
I don't want you to go away, man. I need you here, man. It don't work without you. It don't work without you, man.
Aww.
I can't quit you. I just can't quit you, man.
Don't get that rumor
All right,
started.
we ain't having a Brokeback moment up in
Don't
here,
get that
man.
rumor started. That'll be a hard one to get over.
I never seen that movie, man. You ever seen Brokeback?
No, I haven't.
I haven't seen it either, man. Brokeback.
I
Anyway.
mean, nothing wrong with that.
Man, I'm just saying.
It wasn't on top of my list. It's like it hadn't come
Wrong
on.
with it.
It hadn't come up on like the weekday movie when I'm too bored to get up and change the channel.
Yeah,
Lost the remote.
lost the remote on that one, but nah, man.
No, I haven't seen it.
But I can't quit you.
I
man.
mean, obviously it was a good movie because they won awards and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Just
Is it?
okay, good. I didn't want to see it anyway.
You know what? You kind of have a point. A lot of those big movies, I'm like, oh man, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so creative. It was such a beautiful story. Oh, the writing, the cinematography. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, super producer.
Okay, well, good. I don't feel bad about not
I don't
seeing
feel
it then.
bad either. All right, boom. You ready?
Yep.
Yeah, we're back. That's right. Madmen and Masculinity, KLDC. 12:20 a.m. Mile High City, up and down the Front Range of Colorado, the great Mile High State. Is it the no? It's a Centennial State, but we are Mile High, and we're even like 12 stories above, so we're even, yeah,
We're almost up there.
we're pretty up there, man. We're pretty up there.
We're above 90% of the 3 million plus people in this metroplex area.
Absolutely. And of course, we're on the interwebs everywhere. We want to engage. So hopefully you engage with us. Hopefully you hit that big red button if you're watching YouTube. You hit some maybe blue thumbs up somewhere or something like that. Let us know. Put some comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know. Give us your feedback. Give us some ideas for a future show. It'd be great, man, if we can. If we can get some engagement and take this thing to the next level.
To the next level. Speaking of next level, when we're talking about high value men on today's show, and we did already kind of get into our purpose is to help men better themselves and become more high value, to become better and better and better, and to keep leveling up. When we get away from just looking at the financial aspects and looking at the contribution aspects, you really hit on it before that. When men are struggling, especially in their middle-aged years, and self-canceling because they don't feel their self-worth because a lot of times we're not contributing in some way. And I find in my life, like I've started doing simple things like making sure I've got cash on me so I can hand it out because it's in my own way, it's selfish because it makes me feel good to be contributing to somebody else. But those little things, making some kind of difference in somebody else's life each day, some small thing, makes you feel worthwhile, makes you feel like, okay, I am contributing to the world. So I don't have to look at my bank account to say I'm worthwhile. I can look at what I'm contributing and how I'm making an impact on other people's lives.
Actually, I never thought about that, man. Always having a little bit of cash in the car, man, just to hand out some folks. So, something that, and by the way, I like that term, self-canceling. That won't get us in. That won't get us in jail nowhere. I mean, not I like it. I like the term in terms of we know what it means, but it doesn't flag any of the social media.
I think that was a Jokerism I got off probably Joker from Better Bachelor because he's very keen on the YouTube cancel.
Yeah. So, and something that popped into my mind, just how we compare worth and value. I also think there's a difference between what we contribute and what we produce. So, contribution as a man should be more important than production as a man.
I agree.
Because, production is the outcome, contribution is the income, income, whatever you want to call it. It's the in, it's not the out. So you can't measure, the measure of a man is not the tangible things, I don't think, that we can produce, quote unquote, whether it be a bank account or whether it be, whatever it is. Even if you're a farmer, you might do all the things that tend to lead to a healthy crop, but you can't necessarily control the harvest. You can't control the production. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. If there's a drought, what can you do about it? So I think, our contribution, if we focus on the contribution, then the production is kind of a little bit secondary to that. And then we can be confident in the fact that, what, my life is going to outlive me. When I'm gone, people are still going to be consuming, my digital footprint. People are still going to, my legacy is the only thing that nobody else can have when I'm gone. My wife might be somebody else's. My kids might ultimately be somebody else's. They'll be step or whatever. My bank account, my stuff, my car, whatever it is, those things might be somebody else's, but my legacy will never be anybody else's. So my legacy is what I contribute. Now, what my legacy happens to produce is something secondary and something I don't necessarily have complete control over.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point because if you're focused on your contribution without holding so much onus on what that leads to, because a lot of times I think we get caught up, especially if you're coming from like nice guy syndrome. You're giving because you want to get. You're trying to pad the books and make sure that you're doing stuff so that maybe they will return the favor. When you're only focused on I'm going to contribute this because this is my contribution because I know this will pay dividends later on, but I don't care what this is. Because a lot of times if you do get caught up in, well, I'm doing this for my kids or I'm doing this for so-and-so or this organization and they should ... with it, then you have expectations. But just like you used, the farmer analogy, he's going to plant the seeds, he's going to weed, he's going to water, he's going to do all those things. He doesn't know how much the harvest is going to bring in, but he's still going to do the work and contribute. for the harvest. And so for us, it's like, I know I'm going to contribute. I'm going to plant seeds. I'm going to water. I'm going to do what I can to be a better person and make a dent in the universe and the world. What that outcome is not up to me. I just know I'm doing this because this is my contribution. This is what I'm going to give. And just by doing that as a man, that makes you feel worthwhile. It makes you feel more self confident and gives you more self worth and more, I guess, self accountability would be another good word too, because you know that there's something you're contributing that you're here for. And I think a lot of the guys that are self canceling have lost what they're here for. They think, well, I'm just a paycheck. I'm just here for this or that or whatever my, punching the clock and my contribution. That's not what you're here for. That's just what you're doing while you're here, finding what you're here for, and or maybe even just deciding this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm going to do to make a contribution, to make a dent in the world, whether it's huge or small or not. But for myself and my own sanity, I need to be contributing to the world.
When we focus on production, it's really, really, really easy to parlay that to comparison.
Yep.
Because then it's like, okay, what kind of car do I have versus the next guy? What kind of house do I have or apartment do I have compared to the next guy? Condo. What kind of woman do I have? Whatever it is, if we focus on production, then then that's something that, okay, well, now it's got to be apples to apples. But if you focus on contribution, then it's apples and oranges. My production or my contribution is going to be completely different than yours, but I know at the end of the day, I have done my best to contribute something to this world, even if it is giving $1 to the person at the traffic light, the person that has a sign saying whatever, or bringing that person a fresh combo meal from the restaurant that he's standing next to, whatever it is. I've contributed to something, and that contribution can no way be compared to anybody else's.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody else went and got that same person a combo meal from the restaurant, then cool. Then we both contributed, and we both contributed in like ways. But either way, none is better or more or worse than the others. But when we get in comparison state, that's when we get into deep trouble in terms of, am I enough?
Yeah.
Am I doing enough?
Well, and I think that's why we're kind of pushing so far away from financial and all the income things and all the toys, because you get stuck in that rat race and that, the goalpost keeps getting moved. Okay, well, if I could just make $100,000 a year, I'll be happy. Well, once you get there, oh, well, so and so he makes $250,000 a year and he's got this, that, and the other thing. He's got a bigger house, a nicer car. So then the goalpost gets moved again. And so then you get in this cycle of comparison and stuff, when really all evidence points to, after your needs are met, I guess it's, it used to be 75,000, probably it's more like 80 or 85,000 now. But once you have enough to pay your bills, pay your mortgage, feed your kids, do all the things you do, there's no exponential growth in happiness the more money you get. What I've seen is, and what a lot of the evidence shows, is that the more you work and the more income you bring in, the more you're producing, the more that becomes this kind of like the things you own you kind of thing, where, well, I'm working this much and then these people are relying on me, so I got to work this much more and all these things. And so not focusing so much on the income, because a lot of times when you find your purpose, when you find your contribution, those things will you'll find the income. It'll come to you. Those things, you may take a little while, but once that contribution starts to flower, you plant the seeds, it takes a growing season, 3 months or 2 months, whatever it is. Those are the things that will start to flower and come back and bear fruit. So finding something to contribute and focusing more on the contribution than the production of money or whatever the thing is will more than likely make you more of a high value man, because you're contributing something of value that's making you feel more valuable, that's upping your inner worth, which will definitely up your outer worth and make you a bigger contribution into the world.
Most of the people in particular, well, most people, and since we're talking about men, I'm going to say most men who have holidays named after them didn't have a whole lot of production, but they had a whole lot of contribution.
Yes.
Like, off the top of my head, Martin Luther King Jr., when he was alive, I mean, very short life, died before 40. I mean, very short life. He didn't have a whole lot of money. He wasn't driving around in a Cadillac, or he wasn't, he didn't have a big old house. His kids didn't have a whole lot of bling and stuff. They can go to private schools and all this other kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, he lived out of a suitcase basically. So didn't have a lot. But at the same time, his contribution was such that you can go into any city across this country and there's going to be a Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Right.
I mean, and then even if you want to monetize it in terms of production, his estate is worth. I mean, his estate is worth millions and millions and millions. I mean, and so and so that contribution is the thing that outlives you. Your legacy will be way more long lasting than your production, than your stuff.
Yeah.
And so in terms of value, in terms of value as a man, I think, that begins with, okay, how do we establish my value intrinsically before I worry about how it's perceived? Is extrinsically a word?
I think so.
I don't know. I might have just made that up.
Sounds right.
I don't make up words, I invent them. But so, I mean, I think in terms of establishing where that comes from, the whole idea of contribution, man. I mean, heroes are about what they contribute, not what they make.
Yeah, well, and a great point too that just kind of popped into my head while you were talking was that, they say strong men create good times create weak men create hard times, and then hard times create strong men. And when we're focused on just the financial aspect of my legacy is all this money I have compiled in this estate I have for my children, so my children and my children's children and so on and so forth will not have to work. Well, if you've ever seen trust fund babies, they're not the most contributing. They're usually very entitled, and a lot of them don't have the most happy life because they don't have a purpose or a goal to strive for. Now, if you're a contributor, if you're somebody who has a purpose and you're contributing to the betterment of mankind and to the betterment of the earth, and your kids follow along with that, they will always have a purpose and a path. And so you're not going to be a part of that cycle of, well, I'm going to be the strong man who makes the easy times for my kids so that they don't have to struggle and strive. Well, if they don't have some kind of struggle, if they don't have some sort of fight to fight or some sort of purpose and thing to contribute to, then they're going to feel listless and pathless and kind of out in the doldrums floating without a paddle. So being on purpose for yourself and for your family and your legacy is will get you far more gains in the future and in the long run than just financial bank accounts and what you have on the bottom line.
Boom. And man, I think speaking of bottom line, let's bottom line a break of this bad boy. What you think?
I think we should. KLDC, 12:20 a.m. Mad Men of Masculinity. We'll take a break and be right back.
Boom.
What'd you say about my mom?
What?
She's a lovely lady. That one, she's nice.
Dude, I think, man, I'm just like, these the setting the baseline for this stuff, man. I think so many guys, when we start off in the wrong place, we end up we can never end up rarely do we end up in the right place when we start off in the wrong place, right? I mean, unless you just stumble
I think it's all about the intent and the vision. Are we, what is your intent? Where are you going? And because you can start off in the wrong place if you have the right intention. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the wrong place with the wrong mindset, then you're going to just keep on going wrong. Yeah. And two wrongs don't make a right. Is that what it is?
3 rights make a left.
That's right.
Boom. Are you ready?
Yes. And we're back. Mm-hmm. Masculinity on KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City. It is your family neighborhood, Mad Men. Back at you.
We back like afros.
Man, I wish I could have an afro.
Do you?
I wish I could.
See all that now. I used to have an afro back in the day.
Did you?
Yeah, I had a big old afro.
Did you have the pick in it?
Yeah,
like the fist up? Nice.
With a fist on it? Yeah, I had the fist on it.
I'm jealous.
We used to roll like that, man.
What's my past life? I had to throw.
Had afros and belt bottoms. Had a huffy bike with a banana seat. Who didn't have a huffy bike with a banana? If you didn't have a huffy bike with a banana seat, you ain't American.
Well, I had a huffy bike, but I was a couple of years behind you, so I had the blue and yellow BMX one.
You ain't had a banana seat, though?
I rode the banana seat because my cousin had one. Yeah. He was older, but I didn't have one.
Yeah, you gotta have that banana seat, man. But yeah, man, having a bike back in the day, man, we used to do, we used to get a mongoose. Mongoose was a big deal back then.
Oh, yeah, red line, mongoose.
Yeah. I mean, and all that was like, even as a boy, it was like your value, I mean, it was.
Well, because that was transportation. That's like when you got your driver's license. Like, now you're free.
Yeah.
You're a man now. You can go drive. And I mean, I don't know how far I used to ride. I feel bad for kids today because, we stayed out till the street lights came on and parents were just like, get out the house. and don't come back until the streetlights come on. And we would go miles and miles, and we'd go explore the whole city.
Man, I'd be all over the place, man. My mother would freak out if she knew how far I was. Because I used to hang out with a bunch of older dudes, and man, they would have me all. I mean, yeah, you talking about, miles, dude. I mean, I was way on the other side of town riding bikes, man. We didn't have no helmets, no elbow pads, no knee pads.
Barely had reflective.
We ain't no reflective. We had no reflective vest on or no belt, nothing like that, man. We was just gone.
We were the hardcore generation.
You know what I'm saying?
After the hardcore generation.
And if you fell and scratched up something, what'd you do?
You had to walk your butt home.
Mm-hmm. And then you just rub some dirt on and keep on moving.
I remember what was that, like 6 or 7? No, might have been even, no, it must have been younger than that. I think I was like 4 or 5. I was out with some older boys, and we were riding bikes at the elementary school, and then I come around the corner, as I do come around the corner, we collided, and I just burst into tears because I was hurting, and those kids were like, they didn't want to get in trouble, so they just bounced, and I had to like walk myself home all bloody, and of course my dad's like, "Come here, boy. Let me get the Neosporin." I'm like, "Get that out of here."
Man,
like insult to
that
injury.
stuff hurt, man. You know, back in the day, I kind of grew up in the ghetto, right, in the hood, right. So no, we had straight up alcohol, man. You had some alcohol, and then eventually we got the peroxide. You put the peroxide on, and it fuzz up.
I always liked the peroxide because it bubbled.
Yeah, it bubbled up and all that kind of stuff. And didn't hurt as much, man. Unless you got a deep one, then it did kind of hurt. But otherwise, man, you just rub some dirt on it and keep on going, man.
See, and this is what high value men talk about. We talk about.
Talking about the good old days, man. You know, the rough times.
Does that mean we're getting old because we're talking about the past?
Nah, man. Yeah, but the rough days, man. Those are the good old times, man. That's the kind of stuff that's our baseline. That should be the baseline. That's what all of this, I think, is about. Is what is our baseline as men? You know, in the second half of this show today, what is the baseline as men? What do where do you get that sense of value or not? And to whom are you looking to set your value? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because
who are you looking to set your value?
I mean, that is huge, man. Because in my opinion, man, if you look to society, culture, to the world, whatever, you're always gonna be disappointed, man. Like you said, there's always going to be somebody that makes more. You look at like the NFL now; they got these contracts coming up, these huge contracts, man. And there's always like a new, bitch line. I remember it wasn't but like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, that all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes had the biggest sports contract ever. And and it's like, man, now there's all kinds of people around the league that have bigger contracts than him, man. I mean, so. Somebody will have more money. Somebody will have, a 6 or 8 pack that looks better than you. Somebody will be whatever.
That's that moving goalpost. It's always moving. It's when you're in comparison, it's like you're never going to be satisfied if you're in comparison.
Yeah.
But if you have that baseline, like you're talking about, well, who am I? What is my thing?
Right.
Like, have I looked at what lights me up and what gets me going? What have I figured out what my purpose is, or if not my purpose, then what's my contribution right now? I think. As we talked about the last episode, or the purpose episode, when you start to contribute and you start to get around other guys who contribute and who are high value men who are of purpose and contribution, you're going to probably find, or at least be led into what's your purpose. And once you find your purpose, it's not about the dollars. It's about, like you were saying, what are you contributing and what impact are you making to have a longer legacy of contribution and impact to other men and to the world and families and the nation, everything else.
I tell you what we can't do is we can't look to women to set what is a high value and a high value male. But the problem is a lot of us do. Even when you talk about the high value male, that term is normally used in the context of women, or at least some comparison of getting women or what kind of women or anything like that. And we as men, we can't look to women in our culture, even women in our lives, to set the bar at what our value is as a man, because that, come on, man. I mean, let's just be real. That you talking about moving goalposts? Come on, man. When have you ever been in a relationship and your woman said, you know what, you're done? Like, you're done. You done everything you need to do. Like, you ain't gotta do no more. Like, my life is perfect. Our world is perfect. If you don't do nothing else, you're done.
I've heard you're done, but it wasn't.
Well, you heard it different. You probably heard we're done. You probably heard we done. I mean, but that's so we can't look at our and quite. I can say this from experience as men. Specifically, I'll say as dads, we can't look at our kids to set our value either. Because our kids will have you chasing that brass ring that you can never get to, that you can never attain, and it's kind of a little bit pushy. It can be a little bit testy to say, maybe a little bit counterculture. But I mean, us as a man, as a father, I mean, I remember, sometime a while ago, important guy in my life told me, your kids don't know nothing. Like, they don't know nothing.
Just kids.
They don't know nothing. So their opinions about you and how much and how good of a father you are really kind of meaningless, especially until they have kids. And until they have kids and have been kids for a long time. And so, it's easy for us as dads out here to get caught up in, what do my kids think about me, and, how much do I portray in the world that I'm a great dad? And like, nobody knows what you do. If you're doing the right things, most of what you do goes unseen anyway. And they don't realize, they don't appreciate it.
Well, I mean, and that's one of those things where when you're looking outside yourself as a man, you're looking outside yourself for validation and for somebody to raise you up, you're already at a loss, because looking outside yourself is looking away from who you actually are. And so it becomes almost like an addiction. It's probably the biggest drug out there right now for most men, is looking outside ourselves for that validation and chasing the next thing, chasing that dollar amount, chasing that next toy, that car, that girl, or whatever. But I think I love what Jim Carrey said that one time. He's like, he wishes everybody could be rich, so you would realize that's not what's going to make you happy, because money just makes you more of who you are. So if you're already miserable inside, if you're already chasing some brass ring outside of you, and you add money to that, that's just going to accelerate that chase. When you can slow down and go inside and say, this is who I am. And I think that's the most influential people, are those ones who just know who they are inside, and that becomes their bedrock and their foundation. So they don't get pushed around. They're not chasing something. And if you want to have a healthy relationship with a woman who's probably going to be constantly moving the goalposts because of the emotional nature, if you don't have that foundation, then you're going to feel like, a boat in the storm just being blown all over the place. But if you are anchored and you have those anchors to say, this is who I am, then you can weather that storm much better. And then she will respect you more, because no matter what she throws at you, you're like, I got it. I'm good. It can't affect me, because I know what my purpose is. I know what I'm contributing to the world, and I know where I'm heading to in the future.
And she's going to test you.
Oh, yeah.
And your kids are going to test you. But all of them are going to test you. Those who are in your household or in your innermost circle in terms of relationship are going to test you, going to test that manhood. And if you're always chasing that want to get to, you're going to fall short, man. I know so many guys that they drive the car that they drive. They do a lot of things that they do just to get a woman, or just to get women, or just to get a woman's attention and all that kind of stuff. And that's stupid, man. You end up with a big old car payment. You end up with, a bunch of debt and a bunch of stuff at the end of the day that you got to pay for. That ain't doing nothing, man. It's false advertisement. And, when in actuality, your confidence should not come from what you have, but who you are as a man. Your identity, not your stuff.
Yeah. If you're looking at stuff, luxury items, and that's a great point. If you got a nice car to get women, well, that woman's going to see your car, and she's already going to be like, well, we're at this tier. We're going to this restaurant. He's going to buy me these things. I used to joke about it, but it's kind of become one of my own self-fulfilling prophecy things, is like, I don't ever want to have like a really nice car or a brand new car, because number one, I don't want anybody to falsely judge me because of that vehicle, one way or the other, good, bad, right, or wrong. But also because I just look at the finances of it. I don't want to drive a new car off the lot and lose 10 grand, in 5 days or in 5 minutes after I get off the lot. But also because if I need that, then I'm obviously not living through my own character or my own purpose and my own worth. If it's all about the car. A car is just a vehicle. It's 4 wheels. It's a box on 4 wheels to carry you and your stuff. But if it has to be, the highest, best, most expensive luxury car, why? Now, if you're living from purpose and you have all the income and you're making your impact and you're in the world and the universe, and you want that car, by all means, that's all you. If you're using that car for validation, if you're using that house, that woman, whatever it is, that's validation for your self-worth, then that's where you start to run into those self-worth issues, and you may end up self-canceling at one point because you realize there's no way to reach that end zone. There's no way to get to that goalpost because it always keeps moving on you.
You talk about, why, and a lot of that motivation of why do you have the car, why do you have the house, why do you do this, why do you do that? Do you go to the gym to work out, to feel good, to be healthy, or do you go to the gym because that's where the chicks are? Do you go to the gym to, to flex and to whatever, just for to impress somebody, just for a woman, or just for attention, or just for whatever, just for the vanity sake of it. That's when it's narcissism. And so the question is your why, which ironically, why goes right back to our purpose conversation.
Well, I mean, that's a great book. If you haven't read and Start With Why by Simon Sinek, add it and then watch it. I might even gonna plug his podcast and stuff and his videos, because your why, whether that's your purpose, your impact, your contribution, whatever that why is, why do you get out of bed in the morning? That's the thing that's going to make you the rock. That's going to make you strong. That's going to make you, have that strong foundation of, I am who I am, and all these waves and storms in the world are not going to affect me because I know who I am. I have my why, and that why propels me out of bed in the morning, and it gives me the strength to deal with how the world is and how people are nowadays.
One of my favorite shows growing up was Good Times. Good Times. And Good Times, man. It was, we didn't have a whole lot of role models growing up as far as black families and that kind of stuff. Where I'm from, and so just to see them and to see that family, all the good times, the bad, the ups and downs, the dysfunctions, and all that kind of stuff, and at the same time they were living in a ghetto. They were living in Cabrini Green in Chicago, Illinois. They were living in the ghetto, but the show was called Good Times. And man, I mean, there were so many times where I wanted James Evans to be my dad just because he came home every day. You know what I'm saying? And he didn't have stuff. He didn't have, it was the couple, a husband, wife, and 3 kids living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 almost grown sons were sleeping on the couch. I mean. But at the same time, the show was Good Times. And so, that was the security. But everybody that watched that show, man, y'all remember that episode when he died. When James Evans died, and, Florida was over there, and, and then she broke down at the end. I mean, and I can't say it on air what she said. Everybody know what I'm talking about if you watch that episode. And she was just... I mean, but just it was the collapse of the household, of the family, because he had died. Even though they lived in a ghetto, and even though they didn't have money and all those other kind of things, man. And so that's the important stuff, man.
Well, and we'll get to it here when we come back, but that is a great example of a high value man and his contribution to family and society. It may be kind of the unsung hero thing, but you see the impact he has on the whole family and the rest of people.
Boom, we'll be right back. Madman Masculinity, KLDC, and the interwebs everywhere. We'll be right back. Dude, that episode was like, oh man, just.
I'm at the remind. I don't know.
I mean, it was that
so long.
It was, she was, Florida Evans was sitting there and she was watching. She was, and it was the big sad, and at the end she just goes, damn. I mean, she just, she just broke, man. I mean, and that was like one of the most classic moments in black television. I mean, she's damn. I mean, it was, but and so as a perfect example of, like you said, just the high value man, like their whole worlds collapsed. When the father of the household died.
I always remember like James when he got mad, he had that look.
Oh yeah.
His mouth started flaring, and he's like, Jimmy.
Yeah. I mean, man, that was it, man. That's a high value man. Yeah. All right, boom. Let's bring this thing around.
All right. And we're back.
We're back.
Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. And we're talking, what is a high value man?
Shout out Crawford Broadcasting. Shout out super producer Nikki Nicole. I mean, she's got a new color hair this week. And we love her nonetheless. We love all of her different looks and her facets. We love, all the ways that she is and all the things that she does for us. What you're hearing right now, if you listen to this over the air, was crafted by her hands with care and precision. And one day we're going to get her on camera.
Yeah, because we don't sound anything like this. She plays with all the bass.
She auto-tunes us. We're auto-tune radio. We sound like garbage. We sound like hot garbage, man.
Yeah, she turns it up.
We both sound like Pee Wee Herman, but she adds the bass and the treble. You know what I'm saying? We're auto-tuned radio, auto-tuned talk radio. Man, that's when you know it's bad. She's got skills to pay the bills, man. But high value men, man.
High value man.
I'm telling you, man. Hey, and so if you listen to this over the air, if you check us out on YouTube, you see the long versions. You'll see what we talk about during the breaks. You see
wonder what we do when we take a break.
The shenanigans that we get into. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook.
We have had some people say that the breaks are the funniest part. Which I don't want to be offended, but I
kind of are.
I don't think they're wrong.
I don't think they're wrong either. But and if you go to madmenradio.com, boom, you can holler at us, hit us up, all those kinds of things. Partner with us. I mean, man, all that kind of stuff.
You will hear these on, if you like podcasts, Spotify, we'll be on Apple.
Man, we on like almost 20 different podcasts, man. We're on private podcast platforms. Basically everywhere you can hear a podcast. We're on that bad boy. I saw us on our TV that night, man. I sent a picture to you and I was like, oh, yeah, check us out in our group chat. Like, yo, we on the TV. We on the TV. We on the TV.
Yeah, if you're a millennial, you don't know what AM, FM radio is and what that dial does. Just go ahead and go to Spotify.
Yeah, just go to Spotify. Any one of them platforms.
You'll find us.
Amazon, Spotify, any one of them things.
But if you want to go retro, if you're feeling hipster-ish, you can go find a radio, and then you turn it to 12:20 a.m. Saturdays at 8 and Wednesdays at 6, and guess what? You'll hear us live over the air.
We gonna get super producer Nicole on camera.
We will.
We gonna get it one day. We gonna turn it in there and she ain't gonna know we look. She ain't gonna
better pick the hair color you want to be on camera.
Yeah, you better pick a good hair color that week. It should be like, we gonna call you Skittles.
We gonna
call you Skittles.
Ask permission before you
we gonna call her Skittles, man, because her hair color. She reached into a bag of Skittles and pull out one. Like, that's the color this week. Oh man, that's why we love her, man, because she's constantly evolving and changing just like us.
All right, we're supposed to stop squirreling.
Stop squirreling. Oh yeah, we were told to stop squirreling. High value man. So man, bring this thing down the home stretch. I believe high value man is more about his contribution. I mean, I think. Now, I don't mean to diminish the fact that you should be working, you should be productive, you should be contributing financially in every other kind of way as well to your family and to your household and to your kids. If you have kids, you should be supporting them. I got a call from my daughter today. Dad, I'm at I forgot what store she's at, and I lost my AirPods on the airplane, and Mom said she was gonna give me money, but I can't get a hold of her, so she can't send me money. And I just went quiet, and she's like, so do you have Cash App or Venmo? I was like, okay. And so I turned around and Venmo her, some money. I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't you be in school right now? School just started, dude. Or starting like today and tomorrow. Today and tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, it's starting up, man.
I was thinking, Douglas County already started tomorrow.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. So I'm like, man. So yeah, she hit me up for some. But so we should be doing those kinds of things.
And you wonder why we feel like ATMs and wallets.
So, and again, I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, I want to be, I want to be, pockets. Yeah, I want to be pockets sometimes. I wanted to, she does hear no sometimes. If I don't have it, I'll say I don't have it. But in that case, I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I'll send you $60. So I turned around and then she, before I could even hang up the phone, she had already sent me the screenshot of her little Venmo thing. I was like, oh, you real responsive when you want some AirPods in a moment. But if I text you saying, hey, what's up? I can't hear back from you. Anyhow, so I think it's important to do all that. But, that shouldn't be where it stops.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point because especially when you have teenage kids and they're in that transition period, moving out of the house, and you are not going to be their best friend because they're trying to find who they are, especially if you have boys, and they're going to blow up to you when they're 16. I think I could take you. These are the things that if you have your foundation and your why and your purpose, you can look at it and be like, okay, whatever. You're not going to take it personally, and you're going to know that as they get older, like you said, when they have their kids and they get into their 20s and 30s, then there's going to come back to you at one point and go, Dad, all those things you were telling me that I didn't like, you were right.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, but you were right. Well, yeah, okay, because they're still growing. They're still in their growing up phase, transition phase. Their brains aren't even fully developed till they're 25, 26, maybe 35 for guys. I don't know. But these are the things as men. If you're a high value man, you have your purpose, you have your foundation, you know who you are, you know what your worth is, and you're contributing. These things will get passed down to your kids. It's not about the money.
Yeah, we can accept the fact that just accept it that the world around you sees your production as your value. Let's just accept that fact. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to conform to that, but we don't even need to complain about it. Like, it is what it is. Your kids, your wife or your significant other or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, to some degree, a lot of times we get seen as what we can produce, what we can give, and all those kinds of things, what we sacrifice, whatever it is. And so that just is what it is. Let's just suck it up and okay, bam, let's just own it. That being said, you have to see yourself above and beyond that. You have to understand that that's low hanging fruit. And if you're in the dating world, you definitely have to see that as low hanging fruit. You got to understand that when you walk into the door, the very first time she sees you, your confidence, your sense of identity, all those kinds of things mean way more. Yeah, I drive a 9-year-old car too, but it's nice and it does everything for me. I got no car payment. I'm good. But at the same time, when you walk into the door and you have that sense of confidence and worth and all that kind of stuff on the inside, it shines on the outside.
Well, and that's something that when you do look at high value men who do have a high net worth and do have a lot of money, a lot of them will test women.
Mm-hmm.
They know their value, they know what they're bringing to the table. So even whether you have a big bankroll or not, if you have that high value, if you know your worth, you need to be next in women and knowing, because if you walk in with confidence and you walk in knowing who you are, you're going to attract women. And most of the time, initially, you're going to attract the flies because they're going to be like, ooh, who did that? And so you have to get through those to get to the high value woman who will be your match. And so knowing your worth and not just taking whatever, candy falls out the box and you're just like, oh, well, there's something sweet, I'll take that. No, I know my worth. I'm not eating off the floor. She's going to have to, just like they are going to test us, we need to test them as well because we're high value. We know our worth. We know what we're bringing to the table. We know what our contribution is, and that's the biggest thing. When you know your contribution in the world, what you're trying to bring, what you want it to make your purpose and your legacy, she's got to be a component to that and agreeable to that and supportive of that. And if she's not, that's not your woman.
When you walk in, you have that. When you invest in yourself, and when you invest in yourself, then you inherently build your value and your worth. And I think above all, this is one word that I've been meaning to get in through this conversation, is a high value man clearly has no need to simp. A high value man is not chasing ghostly relationships and chasing women, all in the DMs liking somebody and, oh, you're so beautiful, all those people that don't want you. No, a high value man attracts women. He doesn't go chasing women that don't want him. So if you're a simp, that's a clear indication that you're not a high value man. By simp, I mean, it's a term out here of just, the guy that just that chases women and throws adoration and all these other kind of things in the single world, and they mainly, throws adoration at women who don't see him as valuable.
Yeah, I mean, you could use a nice guy too. I mean, that's part and parcel of nice guy syndrome. They're out there giving, chasing all the women, getting their value and their I forgot the word, it went away. But they're looking for their value and from other women, not from themselves. Right. And so they're always going to be, that goalpost is always going to be moving. They're not going to have a high value sense of themselves because they're looking outside themselves. And so if you want to be a high value man and have a high value woman, you need to have that inner awareness that your why, your purpose, I know who I am. This is my rock. This is my foundation. This is what keeps me stable during the storms of life. And also, this is what keeps me from just choosing whatever lady comes down the road or whatever job or whatever thing. You've got to be a critical thinker and look at your life like, does this align with my purpose? Does this align with where I'm going? If it doesn't, then no. Just no. No is a complete sentence.
And that's why when we hang out with the kind of singles group that we affiliate with sometimes and just hang out with and all those kinds of things, all these women coming up to me, what's up with Jason? What's up with Jason? Is he single? Yeah, what's up with Jason? How come he, I'm like, yo.
Yeah, I'm sure you hear that.
I hear that all the time, dude. I probably told like at least 3 or 4 different women, like, yeah, I mean, man, they be sweating you. They be sweating you when you ain't around, man. That's
and there's another one I'm not around.
Well, even when you are around, there's a couple times where I told you, like, yo, somebody in the room, what I'm saying, they come up and ask me whatever. But, that's the kind of thing. So there's no need to chase as hard. You have options when you're a high value man. If you don't have options in the singles world, the singles realm, then that's a clear indication that you're probably not a high value man. And speaking of options.
No, hang on a second. Right. I have something to say.
Uh-oh.
Because I mean, honestly, I think I am a high value man in training. I don't consider myself a high value man, but I am working to be a high value man. That may be a good way for most men to think about
I'm
themselves.
telling you what the word on the street is, man.
What's the word on the street?
The word on the street is, chicks be digging you.
Oh, cool.
Chicks be digging you.
That's awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We're going to bring this thing in on runway 38 right. There is no 38 right, but
No, there's not,
if you're
but-
in aviation, you know that. But anyhow, we're going to bring this thing in for landing. Leave your baggage. You don't need it. What do you think, JBK? 1 minute, man.
I think being a high value man starts inside. So if you're struggling, if you're depressed, it's time to go inside, do some personal development, maybe get some therapy. Find a group of men who are working on being high value men who are up leveling, and join that group. Stop hanging out with your punk friends and all the losers who just want to go drink beer and watch sports and not do anything that impacts the world. Find a purpose, find a why, and that will probably become, you can find it by going inside and find out who you are and figure out what lights you up and what you see out in the world as something that strikes you as, I want to do something about that. What about you, sir?
Man, if you want to be an eagle, you gotta fly. If you want to fly up high, you gotta fly with some eagles, man. And so I agree in totally getting around guys, do stuff that invests in you. Increase your worth on the inside, and your value will increase on the outside. And then you don't have to chase a lot of things. More things begin to come to you. So, I think that's a great place to start, man. But that high value starts with the journey within, man. So this is good stuff, man. And like I said, I hope folks reach out to you. We want to hear what you think, man. We want to hear all that kind of stuff,
If you
man.
think we're full of it, let
Let us know.
If you love what we're saying, let us know.
Yeah.
But let us know what you want us to talk about, because we will talk to each other all day for infinity.
Know what I'm saying?
And we can talk about what you want us to talk about.
And on that note,
We shall see.
Mad Men out.